So, welcome to the February 13th, 2024 City of Bloomfield Hills City Commission meeting. Let us begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So before we get into the consent agenda, I just wanted to recognize and remember a resident who recently passed away. This is Dale Dawkins. Dale was a resident of the city of Bloomfield Hills for over 4 decades, and he recently passed away after fighting a long illness. Mr. Dawkins served the city as an appointed and elected official for 17 years. He served as a city commissioner for 10 of those years and twice as mayor. Just a run through his career with the city. He was on the planning commission from 1991 to 1998, elected to city commission in 1998, appointed mayor in 2002 and again in 2006. He served 10 years on the city commission until he did not seek re-election. He had 2 terms as a city commission representative on the planning commission, and he was a ZBA member in 1997 and an additional 2 terms as a city commissioner on ZBA. So just wanted to recognize Dale. I did not know him personally, but what I heard about him was pretty impressive, so I just thought we should say something.
Very nice. That's wonderful. He gave I did know him, and he gave, still all along, he's always talked about and asked the city and supported the city. I mean, even when he wasn't serving, he was just very interested. He was a very, very nice man. So.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any comments about the consent agenda? Any questions?
Oh, one clarification I had, Sandra, there's one for long line pavement markings for 2023. Just wondered what long line pavement.
It's the pavement markings, not in the roads. The road commission provides a service where they do the painting.
So the Oakland County does that, we don't do that?
Correct.
So even on our private roads we own, the county does them?
I'm not sure which roads, which roads I think it's just the.
Well, we there's a cost in here, right?
Yeah,
So
there's cost.
So the Oakland counties, we utilize their contracted person who does stripe all the roads. And so, like, for instance, Updike, Cranbrook, roads like that are all our roads. So mostly once a year, we typically stripe those roads. So we utilize that contractor through Oakland County because they go through a bidding process. So it makes it easier for us to. So just economy of scale, we get a better price.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
But we pay Oakland County Road Commission,
Yes,
and then they pay the.
yes.
Okay.
And was this for a lot of roads, or was it just for a specific project, or
So
what was the?
we look at all our roads that are striped, and we just make a determination of which ones, and we give the list to them, and we get it done,
Okay.
and we pay for it, the cost of it.
Do we do this once a year, you said?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this does say for 2023 on it. Okay.
You may have remember, we striped Cranbrook. I don't know if you drive on Cranbrook, but the striping is bad.
Yeah.
So they did that, and we actually had to have them come back and fix it. But yeah, so that's.
But they did a lot more than that, right? Because that was kind of the question in my mind is
all
that
over. I mean,
it was all over the city.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot of striping that gets done. This gets wore out when people drive around.
And then I just also noticed we started work on, the water main relocation from Eastways.
Yeah, we're working through design of that.
So that's what this is the design of that, of relocating those?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Is that coming out of our general fund, or is that on the road?
Water and sewer.
Water and sewer, right? That's what I thought, okay. That's all I had, Mayor.
The Trowbridge Farms chip seal, did we have any update on the warranty?
So, so the process recently was, HRC and Lee was here that went through the roads with our DPW foreman, identified all the different areas, took pictures of everything. Try to identify areas that, and how we can fix them. I know Leah spoke with Jeff Demick of Highway Maintenance, talked about some of the issues that we were experiencing. They discussed some ideas, but I think the best approach is for him to come back in the spring. And not everything, I think, can just be sprayed over and fixed. I think there may be some areas that we might have to cut out and recompact and then respray over it. There may be some minor grading things to be done. So we're on it, but we're not completely all over it because we have to wait to the roads dry up in the spring and then get him out here and make some determination of how much he's going to contribute to this. We do have some funding we've held back from their company. But I'm not sure from a warranty standpoint where we're at with all this because some of it may not apply.
Yeah.
But my idea, and I think our idea, is to try to work with him so he can help us. He's, one of the only contractors that does this, so we want to make sure we can really work with him to get this thing done. We have some ideas on how we can, moving forward, and how our own DPW can run some equipment and do some things that they can do some maintenance and patching and things that in the future. So that would be after this. We want to have a thoughtful process in the spring to make some of these repairs.
What about new drainage?
Well, so the drainage, when we went through the special assessment district part of this, we did some storm water repairs and updates. We did a little bit of ditching, and with some grading, but the scope of the project didn't. There wasn't enough cost. There wasn't enough funding for the scope of this project to really put a lot of money into stormwater management.
A lot of the issues are not necessarily drainage issues either. I mean, there are some things that are in area, defects, damage, whatever, in areas that you wouldn't really expect. So
Okay.
it doesn't necessarily match up with where you would expect things to go wrong based on a drainage.
I thought the
issue.
water was getting underneath and breaking it up.
Well,
freezing and breaking it up, expanding.
But that's true, but I'm not sure that that's something that you could necessarily just drain away with ditching, or it might be water table issues, or we just don't know for sure.
Was any of the damage caused by the snow removal contractors?
There was some damage that was caused by some plowing, not extensive damage. There are some areas, and still a couple areas with some of the residents that I think we can do some further work on to remove some water that's tabling or that's in front of their homes, pooling in front of their homes. But I've always felt that there's always going to be a certain amount of maintenance we're going to have to do with this. And I do agree with Commissioner that I think there's water that gets underneath and does cause some of these things. But what we used to do is come in there every spring into a muddy mess and add a bunch of gravel, and we'd have like a big soupy gravel mess. And so I don't think it's going to be that bad anymore. I think it's going to be better. But I do think we spent money on gravel. We spent money on different things. We may have to spend some money every year from a maintenance perspective just to kind of keep it better. And I think we need to learn from it. And I think we maybe have to make some big adjustments this coming year, spring, and then learn from it. And then from that point forward, every year, just make adjustments and maintain it. And reseal some things, and I'm confident that we can keep it going right, but there's some work to do.
It would be nice if the township would do something with their portion of Canterbury Road, because it seems like it's getting worse and worse. I know
You're just
it's,
comparing it to the roads that we have, so,
I know, they're much better. They are.
yeah. We'll keep working on it, though.
I noticed the chairs are in the budget.
Yeah, I saw those
Thank
too.
Yeah, I saw that too there.
$6,000. Something like that.
They're nice.
Yeah.
Very nice, thank you.
Yeah, they're very nice.
I just had a quick question for Chief Gormley. I was reading through your report, and there was a comment about the discussion with Cranbrook focused on pre-planning and best practices surrounding any civil protest on Cranbrook property. I was just wondering, is that something of heightened concern these days with them, or is it just standard protocol to be prepared for that?
It was standard protocol, it wasn't for a specific threat, but
Okay.
the university and schools across the nation have had a lot of protests and activity in the recent year.
Mhm.
So I think they were just looking to get ahead of it and have some ideas of the best way to handle things if something did arise.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I think, anybody else?
Nope.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve?
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Okay. Let's move on to recognition of citizens in the audience. This is for individual comments and are limited to 3 minutes per person, and this is for anything that is not already on the agenda. Do we have anybody today that would like to speak?
Mr. Mayor, good evening. May I?
You may, and please identify yourself.
Sure.
And
My name is Steve Craig. My wife Alex is here. We're your neighbors at 753 Sebago Lane. And we would like to present the concept of reviewing the ordinance section 4204. And I submitted some documents in advance. Did everyone get those?
Mhm.
Yes, great. So what we're proposing or asking the commission to do is just to review the language. So today our city ordinance is not consistent with the state code, nor with the international suggested code, which would allow for a change primarily relating to the barrier. So that today allows for a fence. We are proposing as an alternative, which again is in the state code as well as the international code, that we use as an accepted alternative, a automatic pool cover. And it's been found that these automatic pool covers are in fact safer than having a standard barrier. Also, I have John Beninati, who's here from Beninati Pool, who does a lot of work in the area, who's a member of the association. He's actually the president in the state of Michigan. The association participates in the guidelines as well as the rulemaking that is then incorporated into these codes. And the main purpose of these codes is so that municipalities and states can leverage the resources and then apply the safety standards that are being used. So what we would suggest or propose or request is that you just review that ordinance and consider adding that additional exception to allow for these covers. So I'm happy, I've done a fair amount of research on the subject, and I'd love to talk about it if there's any specific questions or concerns that I might be able to address.
Well, for me personally, when I'm thinking about this issue, I like it from one standpoint that it eliminates the need for a fence. We've got a lot of fences going up in the neighborhood, and not a huge fan of fences. But on the other hand, I know that with a pool fence, the requirement is that the gate is an automatic closing gate. So if you leave the area, the gate automatically comes shut, and so it's always gated off, and so a child can't just wander into that area. And the question in my mind is more about, well, what happens if, and I know I would do this, I would forget to close it. And then, the onus is kind of on you as the homeowner to close that pool. And if you forget, then, it's open, and then there is nothing to prevent a child from wandering into the pool. Is there any answer to that or a solution to that kind of issue? Or does it automatically close after a certain amount of time that it's not in use, or?
So no, it doesn't automatically close, because that, there's always a risk that someone might be in the pool. In fact, it requires a combination. So to address that scenario, I think, and John's company does a tremendous amount of service in the area, so he might be able to speak to this as well, but we're operating under this underlying assumption that this gate is functioning as intended. And what commonly happens is that these gates are actually left propped open, the hinges are broken, they're warped, the latches themselves break, it's a mechanical device, and so we're really incumbent, we're relying upon the homeowner to maintain that. And so similarly, it's the responsibility of every homeowner to do things to make sure that their property is safe. I can tell you that we chose to have this pool cover installed because it was important to keep our children safe, which is really the number one risk. So when you look at statistics in terms of who's harmed or who's involved in these drownings, there's really a few scenarios that are presented. It's very rarely, if at all ever, some random trespasser. It's scenarios where most commonly children who are in the home wander out to the pool. And this gate around the pool and this broader fence doesn't actually help prevent that, whereas these covers in fact do. So the homeowners are much more keen or intent on making sure that that cover's closed. Additionally, there's a value in terms of managing and maintaining the chemicals as well as maintaining temperature, right? So there's a significant cost in water savings. So as someone who has a automatic pool cover, I can tell you that, you know, I'm crazy about making sure that it's closed for all of those reasons. So I think, you know, when you look at the big picture statistics, the reason they've gone away from these fences, the rigid fences as a requirement, is because they've found that this is a safe alternative. So yes, of course, there's always going to be responsibility of a homeowner, and that's the case with really anything. So I think that's why, again, both the state and this the organizations have supported this, including the National Alliance to Prevent Drowning. I think I'm saying that correctly. So the research shows that this is the safest means.
Quick question. I know in the document here they reference strength, tensile strength of the fencing and so on. Can you speak to the performance standards of the cover and how that stacks up?
Yeah. So I don't know if everyone is familiar with the ASTM, but basically it's a standardization for any kind of mechanical device, and so any manufacturer that creates a particular item can submit, and in this case we're talking about the pool cover, so they submit those for review, and testing is done by the independent laboratory to certify that. So in the actual code, it requires and references this particular standard. So for example, for the cover that John's company sold to us, it meets this standard. So personal experience, we were watching, and you know, again, one of the benefits is having this open space, and I was inspired by Mayor Baxter on our planning commission meeting last month. My wife Alex and I love to watch the deer run across our backyard. And one of the things that we were worried about is this, is this cover really safe? Well, we saw a large buck make its way directly across our pool and kind of hang out there for a brief second, and we saw the tracks as it kind of wandered off into our neighbor's yard. So the standards there as a way to for lack of a better term, standardize this, and there's several different manufacturers that make these type of pool covers that are to the spec.
Okay, we're kind of up on time.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other quick questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else today? Okay. Next up, the commission will consider the proposed ordinance amendment to Chapter 17.5 Special Events. And Dirk, are you up on this one?
I am, yes.
Thank you.
So at the last meeting, Mayor called with the commission, asked me to take a stand at drafting an ordinance to address temporary events that utilize tents. We currently have an ordinance, section 17.5-2, which deals with temporary events and activities that impact the right-of-way. So I used that ordinance to put a section dealing with temporary events that include tents. I I picked some numbers that, we may want to change. Basically, just paraphrasing, or summarizing rather, this ordinance would require approval of any activity or event that utilizes a tent 20 by 20 or larger. They would have to get a permit from the city. They could have 3 of these events a year. They could be 5 consecutive days for each event. The tent would have to be approved by public safety and the building department. Would have to comply with the zoning ordinance. Could not create a nuisance. And I think that's I would also have to comply with the fire prevention code as well. And so it's a place to start. How did I pick 20 by 20? If you look at the average tailgating tent, that's 10 by 10, I believe. So I took 2 of those. Maybe too small, maybe too big. I'm not sure what the commission is thinking on that score. Dave and I talked about it a little bit. He thought 20 by 20 is a reasonable place to start. But again, that number, there's no magic in it. I just tried to estimate it. You may want it to be a bigger tent. The key thing to remember, though, is however we do this, it has to be even-handed for all activities and events that utilize tents of a certain size. So it would have to apply to sporting events. It would have to apply to church outdoor services. It would have to apply to weddings that people have at their homes. So that was the difficulty in doing this. But that's
So like when Cranbrook does their Lax Jam, and they have all the tents, they would come to you anyway, probably.
well, but let's assume they used a tent. Let's just for the sake of argument say it was 100 by 100. It's larger than 20 by 20. They could do it. They would just have to come and get the appropriate permit from the city, but they could only do it 3 times a year for 5 consecutive days. And I think that's kind of really the secret. This wouldn't prevent somebody from having, somebody that lives in a beautiful estate lot, they want to have an outdoor wedding, they could still do that. They just have to get the approval from the city. They can only do it 3 times a year. I mean, most people aren't going to have 3 weddings in a year, but they could have a wedding, a graduation party, or whatever. But it limits the number of these events that can occur to 3. And it requires city approval of the tent, which protects people, the public health, safety, and welfare, but making sure it's up to code, building code, complies with fire prevention items and the like. So that's what we started with, and any suggestions, certainly welcome to.
Well, if a tent is smaller than 20 by 20, there's no regulation at all?
No. For instance, like a tailgate tent, a lot of people, you see them at soccer games or at tailgates. Some people have tailgates actually at their houses for games. And so I thought that was a reasonable tent. I don't think the city really wants to get in the business of regulating that kind of a tent. It's more the tents where people are intended to gather underneath, a larger number. And that's why maybe 20 by 20 is too small. Maybe it needs to be a larger tent than that. But that was the place that we decided that we would start. So.
Seems like the size is about right to me, but one question I have is the 3 times per year, could those be consecutive, where you would tie 3 5-day periods together for a 15-day?
There'd have to be a day in between, because it talks
So you'd have to
about-
take it down and put it back up?
Yeah, you technically under this ordinance you could do that because it's 3 events per year, each of 5 consecutive days. So if you had an event and it was 10 consecutive days, even if you called it the second event, you'd have to have a day in between, basically.
Well, you brought up a scenario where there's a graduation and then maybe there is a wedding. I mean, but I guess those are going to be rare occurrences. 5 days seems reasonable for a single event, but sometimes around graduation time, I know that people try to combine things. So I guess I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with the consecutive times limited to a total of 15 days. But I don't know how
Well, this
does
all started from
everybody
the
else feel
church
about that?
putting up their tent in COVID with saying they couldn't convene inside, so could they please worship outside underneath this tent? and we made an exception, and they kept putting it up year after year for the entire 5 months. And, you know, neighbors complained, and
Right.
they abused it. So I guess
But
that's what
15
instigated
days
this.
versus, you know, months of,
Correct.
yeah.
So, just to clarify, if I have a 10 by 10 tent and I want to put it up in my backyard, I could leave it up all summer?
You could.
Not that I'm going to do it, I'm just asking.
You really like camping.
Well, it's like an umbrella, a big umbrella or something.
I mean, yeah, I guess it would be like a big umbrella or something.
Yeah, those big umbrellas are
Could you put it in your front yard
nice. Yes.
and not be regulated? It's not
Yeah.
limited, it could be in your front
Yeah,
yard.
that's what I'm just thinking. I was just,
But, you know, now when you're talking about that, you're going away from the concept of a temporary event or activity. You're going more into a zoning ordinance kind of a situation. And Dave and I talked about that, you know, whether we wanted to just regulate the temporary events, just regulate tents, and we decided that the better part was to tag them together so it was a temporary event with a tent. And that slid in pretty well into the existing ordinance you had that dealt with temporary events and activities that impacted right away through utilized regularly, so.
Does this prevent a church from putting a tent up all summer?
Yes, absolutely would.
that's your point. You're saying it's across the board.
It has to be across the board because there's an act, and the acronym is RLUIPA, and basically it protects religious institutions and how you regulate them with land use ordinances. So there's two causes of action under RLUIPA. One is if the city's land use regulation unreasonably prevents the free exercise of religion, that's one cause. And the other cause is whether it's discriminatory only towards a religious institution. So therefore, if you're going to take action that has the effect of prohibiting an outdoor service, it's got to be even-handed. Otherwise, the second cause of the RLUIPA comes into play. And this is even-handed. So, and it doesn't, you know, again, we're not saying that they can have an outdoor service. They can have it 3 times a year for no more than 5 days. So I think it solves the bigger issue, but still recognizes that on occasion it might, you know, be nice to have outdoor services. And many religious institutions all throughout the metro area do it on occasion. I don't think they do it all summer, but they.
Would this be a problem for Cranbrook in general for their events? Do they have events all year? I mean, would they just say, oh, it's the middle school that is requesting this tent, or it's because they have graduations and all that? Do they request a lot of tent?
It's a great question, they do, and, but a lot of them are smaller, aren't they?
They do have probably more than 3 large tents a year. In Cranbrook, I wrote down 2 questions here because 2 things I was thinking of that maybe points to consider. Is Cranbrook one address or is it multiple addresses?
That's
Right,
my
that's
question.
what her
Could you say it was
point
the
was.
middle school
Yeah.
could stand alone, and
Um,
so it's based? I mean, is there a way to
It
write it
is one
in?
address, but we'd have to, that would have to be a consideration, because they do have multiple things
Right.
going on.
Don't they also have weddings on the premises where people might put a tent up so it would be someone else that was asking for the permit, not Cranbrook, maybe?
They do, yes. And a second thing is also sometimes in events, there's multiple tents for the same event. Sometimes weddings will have two tents or 3 tents in somebody's backyard for 3 days. So it's just something to consider when you're making your decisions.
Well, that would be tents larger than 20 by 20. If you had 4 10 by 10s, that would get you in the category of needing city approval. So yeah, it's not limited to necessarily 1 tent, it's limited to more than 20 by 20 worth of tent.
But someone can have multiple big tents on the same day, same event.
Just 3 times a year. is
We're
all.
not getting in the way of that kind of thing.
No,
Okay,
we're not.
great.
Okay.
But what's the Cranbrook issue though, Dirk? That is an issue.
Yeah,
The crap, see, that's the problem with
Right.
trying to do this. And if it was a zoning ordinance, the answer would be easier. And I will.
You know, there's.
But this is a
we can work
regulatory
on it.
ordinance.
Let us think about it and bring it
Okay.
back, if that's okay. I
Is there any way to get a history of what they've
Yeah, we have all the information on that,
Requested
but
in the
let us think about it and come up with a solution for
Because
this.
So do you wanna
can't
wait on
see
this
them.
then?
Yeah, let's do that.
The tents
Let's
on
wait.
Cranbrook's property, you can't see them from outside
It
Cranbrook.
doesn't matter, though, we still have to treat everybody the same.
Yeah,
You do have to treat it the same, and that's the one thing I want to make sure that everybody understands. We can't carve out an exception for Cranbrook. Now, maybe
Right.
there's another practical way that we can do it based on screening might be a good way of doing it, but
Well, how about we table this, so
Yeah.
to speak?
yeah,
And Jeff and I and Dirk can talk about it.
that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work putting this together.
Do we need a motion for that to table it, or?
No.
No, not a motion, no.
Okay. All right. All right, the commission will consider the 2024 poverty exemption policy and guidelines and the resolution to establish and adopt the 2024 City of Bloomfield Hills poverty exemption policy and guidelines.
Mr. Mayor, that's also me. This is kind of a pro forma thing, we have to do it every year. Under state law, MCL 211.7U, there is a provision that people are allowed to apply for poverty exemptions from property taxes. And the state law requires that every year you have to adopt standards for what somebody has to be in order to be eligible, what criteria they have to meet to get the poverty exemption. And you have to actually put a schedule in there with respect to income levels. And the income levels are, most municipalities, including what I did here, utilize the federal government's income levels because it's generally a fair way. Now, you can lower the income levels, you just can't make them higher. But again, my recommendation is to follow the federal guidelines, which all the courts have recognized as being legitimate. So that's what we've done. It's virtually the same motion, same resolution that we do every year, the same policy. The only thing that has changed is the federal guidelines have been updated to reflect the most current federal guidelines. So
Okay.
it's something we have to do every year, and we have to do it before the board review, which is in March. So
Okay, so nothing on our side has changed.
nothing other than the federal guidelines schedule contained in the resolution.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve the 2024 poverty exemption policy and guidelines and the resolution prepared by our city attorney and presented to us tonight to establish and adopt the 2024 City of Bloomfield Hills poverty exemption policy and guidelines.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. We will now consider a resolution opposing proposed water affordability legislation.
So Mayor, based upon the conversation at the last commission meeting, we put together this proposed resolution, and we basically just looked at all the information that we provided to the commission so far, and actually even looked at the example that was provided to the commission, and took that information and made it applicable to the City of Bloomfield Hills. So there's really nothing special about this, but it was our sense that the commission, we may want to adopt something like this.
Any change of heart from anybody, or any questions about the way it was written?
Nope.
Okay, well, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move that we
go
approve
ahead.
and adopt the resolution to oppose the proposed water affordability legislation as drafted by our city attorney and presented for our consideration at tonight's meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Actually, Amy that did this, by the way.
Good job, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, we will now hear the city manager comments.
Mayor, we're going to ask for a representative from the Commission for the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments. So typically, someone from the city, an elected official, should be a representative, and I would be like a alternate. But they like to have an elected official to represent the city. And that may entail going to a meeting once or twice a year. But we could provide you with all the information they provide us, and I just think that somebody from they would like an elected official from each community to be a delegate. So.
Have we done this before?
Years ago, I
Blow me a
think
Coke.
it's one of these things that I think used to years ago, but it just kind of got out of practice. And yeah, even before, I think even me, there was a lot of these, involvement in a lot of different things with somebody, a representative from the commission. But this one we think is an important one, and they ask us, so, right?
Yes, Commissioner McClure was the last appointee.
Okay.
And where are these meetings?
I'm not, Detroit,
They do Zoom now.
they do Zoom, yeah. So.
Oh, wow. Modernization.
I think Susie'd be great.
Yeah, I noticed nobody was jumping for the
Well,
opportunity.
let us
I'll
know.
do it.
How about
I'll do
that?
it.
Let us know.
Okay,
let's-
will do.
we'll
I'll do
talk.
it, Dave. I'll do it. I'll do it.
Okay. Only other thing I wanted to mention is, I know it was important to the commission and Commissioner McCarthy about our investments for our pension. So I'm looking into that, and I was waiting for everybody has their own investments, so things are getting better. So I was waiting for some of that to happen. I've asked Sandra for some reports, end of December report, so she's getting that for me, and then I'm hoping to put that in my weekly report.
Okay, thank you.
Because I know there was
Yes.
concern about pension funding and the downturn in the market.
Yeah.
That's it, that's all I have.
Okay.
Anything about the latest, I heard that the Chilean burglary ring has moved on, or that was just from my builder, not from anything authoritative?
We've had not any activity that I'm aware of since prior to Christmas. I don't know, that could be because of several reasons. Sometimes groups that travel like to stay in warm areas. There was also a lot of pressure put on them. There was some arrests made throughout Michigan, including ours, for some of the B&Es, and there was a lot of local involvement in prevention efforts placed. So they have subsided. I don't think we should let our guard down and think that it's not possible for that to reoccur.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other business?
I just noticed something, Dave. Don't usually come that way, but I was traveling westbound on Long Lake before Eastways, and I know that's where we're getting ready to do the COVID and all that. Somebody just like trashed our sign.
Oh, really?
I mean, there's like tape all over it, and it's like, like, and so I mean, I don't think right now we need to do anything with it, but it looks as if,
Intentional or somebody hit it?
no, it looks like someone was putting like yellow tape around it, like caution tape or something. We wouldn't have done that, right?
I'll take a look at it tomorrow.
It just looks kind of trashy looking, you know?
I'll take a look at it.
I was like, so if we can, but then I thought too, well, we're gonna be closing that down, right?
Well, what sign is it? Is it the Eastway sign? Or
No,
is
it's
it
the
a-
Bloomfield Hills sign. Welcome to the city of Bloomfield Hills.
Oh,
Oh, now.
I thought it was just like this, making you aware of.
On
No.
Eastways towards?
No, it's on Long Lake, westbound, right before you get to
Okay.
Eastways. I was coming from Adams, and I went Long Lake, and I was coming up, and I just noticed that entrance sign there, welcome to Bloomfield Hills.
You know, I know that Jamie had come to me, Jamie Spiver, DPW foreman, asking about replacing a sign.
It wasn't that
It
one.
wasn't that one? Okay. But I'll check into it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we used to have foam entrance signs, and those are easy to get ripped off, so we changed to metal. They look great, but they have the security bolts on them. So, anyways, I'll check into it.
Yeah, all right. I just, details.
Absolutely.
You don't want a trashy looking sign when you say
problem.
welcome to the city.
Along those same lines, the monument for the Charing Cross entrance seems to still be lagging, or
Oh, good point,
I
yeah.
know, we've talked about that now for a year, Dave.
My difficulty with it is, so I can get it done, but it would be city involvement, and I'm not, my difficulty with it has been there's a homeowners association over there that's been dealing directly with an insurance company to get this thing fixed. And we have talked to them a couple times, but it's kind of dragging their feet, you're absolutely right. And I've always thought, well, the way for me to get it done is just take it over and get it done. And I can do that. Because I do think that sign, or that pillar is on city property. I think it's in the city right away. It's somewhat in the city right away and MDOT right away. The other one across Charing Cross is MDOT property. So there's a difficulty of, if it's not ours, but I do think that one encroaches into it. So I think I can do something about it. I haven't, to be honest with you, because I thought the solution was a good solution, but it is dragging on, so.
Can you
If the-
inquire first and see if we can get any of the insurance money? before-
Well, I'll be honest, I have been told several times by Amy over there that this needs to get done because it's gonna be, and I've decided to keep trying to let this process go through. But, yeah, I can make this thing happen. If the commission wants me to take it over, but I just, the negotiations and whatever's going on is taking forever. And,
Well, we're gonna lose it if we don't fix it.
Is
It's
it
gonna be,
historical landmark, though?
It is.
It is.
Do we have to comply with guidelines, or?
well, it just would be, it's like, I think it's made out of sandstone, so there's just some sandstone pieces that have to be replaced.
I think most of the pieces are there,
Yeah.
just need to be.
I don't think it's gonna fall apart. I think it's, let me check into it. I hear you. Let me see what I can do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And also, did we find out any more about, from MDOT about the crosswalk on Long Lake and Woodward for?
That should happen in the spring. We did, we were awarded a grant to get that done. But we're not gonna handle any of it. They'll handle it. They'll handle the money, they'll handle the construction of it, I believe. And I think it'll happen in the spring.
But we have a say in what they're gonna do, right? I mean, they're not just gonna tear out all our flowers.
Yeah, no, there'll be a say, but essentially it's just a sidewalk going across. So they'll have to put a sidewalk in a specific place, and whatever flowers are there and plantings, we'll just have to remove them and move them.
Are there street painting, like pedestrian crosswalk and stuff they'll do too, or no?
Yeah, they'll pay for that, and I believe they're gonna pay for the electronic, the signal. I believe they can utilize the poles that are already there, but they'll pay.
I just
for
don't
it.
see how anyone can walk all the way across there unless they're fit within one light.
You can't.
You can't, you'd have to
Let's
stop.
So are they gonna have like a car shielded, little hut in the middle or something? What are they gonna do?
They would just have a sidewalk, and you would cross one, direction of traffic, and then walk across the median and stop and
It'll
wait for
tell
the
you
other.
to stop, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be the purpose of,
Mhm.
having a blinking light to stop. And
Have we had much bus usage of the bus stops?
no, we do see some folks that have taken the bus, but we don't see very much usage. Right now, there's the cement pads, the bench, and a garbage can. It's been that way for some time. They have not approached us about a shelter yet. They do know, they have all the information that they have to go through the planning process.
Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to move to approve.
Second. All right, meeting adjourned.